too much and I'll go back inside.
I
No
think
worries.
you're
No worries. We're sort of prepared for this kind of stuff and all the noise in the background, all the kids running around from the pandemic times. So we're prepared for it. So hi everybody. I'll let Sonia do the intros.
okay. Hi guys, my name is Sonia Saund. I am a part of the local home finder team, as is Amir.
Yes.
And we have Jayesh. We're going to get you to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here with you and Amir. I'm Jay. Full name's Jayesh. Recently bought my first home in the last year and a half, and happy to be a part of the session today.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you here because now we get to delve into the mind of a first-time home buyer. And you recently purchased, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Very cool. When did you buy and where did you buy?
So we bought April 2021 is when we signed our final papers and took keys 30 days later in May, and we're up in Alliston.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love Alliston. Alliston's a great town. There's always a lot going on over there. Very classy place to be. That's cool. And
Sorry, where'd you move from, Jay?
We were actually renting in Caledon, and before that we were living in Brampton.
Awesome.
Wow, it's always fascinating for me, and I and it's because it's quite the hurdle to get over from renting to buying, and because it hasn't been made easy to do that because the rent prices don't keep going. They've never gone down. Never ever have they gone down. They always keep climbing and higher and higher. So can you give us a little bit of a rundown on how this all came about? Let's start with when did you guys decide to do this?
Yeah, honestly, this started when I got married with my wife in 2018. At the time, as everyone knows, weddings are expensive, so weren't quite ready to buy a home then. But we did want to get into kind of that financial mindset and being able to manage a home. So we actually rented starting in 2019, early in the year. And while we were renting, we were always kind of keeping abreast of the market to know what the prices are, what's required from a financial confidence standpoint, making sure our GDSRs or TDSRs are within ratios. But we probably seriously started looking, I want to say November of 2020. And that's kind of, let's call it 8 months into the pandemic. We knew that things weren't going to get any better. And we wanted to bite the bullet before things potentially got worse and we were sort of kicked out of the market, out of our control.
So sorry to interject, but when you guys were renting, just to give some, our viewers some perspective, what were the rental rates like and what were you renting at that point?
Yeah, great question. So when we started looking for rentals, it was anywhere from 1,800 and up, and we were sort of heart set on renting a townhome.
Okay.
So an 1,800 a month would get you like a 2-bed, one bath, or maybe a basement apartment. But we really wanted our own space, really and truly. So we were sitting around the 2,100 mark. Our landlords were really great, to be honest. They loved the way we kept the home, so they didn't raise rent on us even before the pandemic started. And then with the pandemic, there were rules in place to not increase, so that kept us protected. But to be honest, from our family standpoint, we knew that we could probably get a better deal going to a 1-bed or studio and bath condo. We wanted the space, so we had our heart set on a townhome.
That's awesome. And it was just the two of you guys at that point?
Just the two of us and a dog. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Nice. Very cool. All right. And in terms of financials, you guys already had a little bit of money put away for this, or you both had some and then you combined them? How did you do this?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. We both had some set away, and we both started a bit of a joint savings plan to get us there. I think the biggest hurdle, and one that's maybe not talked about a lot, is thinking about the debt situation. So we both came with our baggage of debt, and whether that be student loans, whether that just be our own debt that we came with, and understanding the impact that had on getting a home. So as much savings as we would have had, we knew the banks were looking at debt capacity and how much we could probably manage going forward. So our true strategy before we even got our pre-approval was smashing that debt, whether it be car payments, whether it be credit cards, or lines of credits, whatever we had, was let's get rid of some of that, make sure our available credit is a good news story, which honestly helped with getting our pre-approval and what we were looking for.
So was that a piece of advice that was given to you by someone at the bank, or did you already talk to a broker before that? How did you get into that zone?
Yeah, a lot of it was kind of just self-directed of, we know we need to smash this or else it's going to get really difficult. But I have a good friend who was a teller for a large part of his life, and then he went into sort of financial advising, and then now he's in underwriting. So he kind of gave me the lays of the land of what are they looking for when you provide your documentation for a pre-approval, what are they looking for your final approval. And something that we learned was, although it'd be great to close a lot of credit lines, whether that be credit card or lines of credits, it could actually hinder our ability to get a decent pre-approval. So the advice that we got that I'm happy to share here is, instead of kind of closing everything that's possible, it's make sure your debt use ratio is under 10%. So kind of the example I was given was, if you got 50K worth of credit spread across a couple credit cards and a line of credit, you don't want to shut that down, because you're probably only using $2,000 on a monthly basis, and that's a great ratio to the bank. Whereas if you just hold on to your $5,000 credit card and you got a $2,000 balance on a monthly basis, now you're at 40%, and the bank's not going to be concerned of how you're going to manage a mortgage on top of that usage ratio. So a lot of learning coming just from talking with friends, families, subject matter experts, or just doing your own research.
This is certainly like threading a needle. And you're trying to do this as a first-time home buyer, and we've had it so where we have a lot of first-time home buyers anxious about getting a house. They need to educate themselves in normal times, but then you had to do this during a pandemic.
Yeah.
And also there was bidding wars at the same time, where everybody's just going on a frenzy to buy a house. Because they're apparently going to stop making houses. So everybody needs a house right now, and you're in a pandemic, and you guys are first-time home buyers. So you had to adapt very quickly to get yourself. And how did you do that? How did you get yourself in that mindset? Did you guys have some discussions where you had to have some? Was there any tough times there? Did you have to have? Was there any friction there?
Honestly, it was being honest with ourselves. And one was, hey, if we're planning to buy a house, like, do you want to make coffee at home, or do you want to buy it every morning?
Yeah.
Do you want to plan our meals every week and grocery shop very intuitively and very intentionally, or do you want to be a bit lazy and treat ourselves on a Friday? And those are the tough conversations to have, not only with someone who you might be planning to buy a house with, but even with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really easy to convince yourself to just hit the car and grab a meal. Even we're a 2-car household, so knowing that we were in a pandemic, can we park one car for a little while? Take it off insurance, just keep it on fire and theft, and not fill gas in one car. Those are really, really easy, quick wins that allowed us to kind of expedite our process. I think the other thing that we really had to keep ourselves honest with was, to your point, like, buying in a pandemic was a little bit crazy. Either sellers were under listing by at least 100K to get people to bite, and buyers, knowing that, were overbidding in that first initial ask of 100K. And that's just the initial bid. Forget the round 2 and the round 3 of competitive bids. So just try to understand, hey, what are we pre-approved for? What's the asking? What's going to be the competitive first offer? How much room do we want to leave us for that second or third offer if we get to that spot? And then also, we don't want to be house poor. So although you could be a pre-approved for a phenomenal amount, you crunch the numbers, and you really got to understand mortgage plus property insurance plus bills, groceries, leisure. How much can you really afford realistically? So it was a lot of really being honest with ourselves, a lot of spreadsheets, which I absolutely love. But it was good to just make sure we're not gonna bite off more than we can chew.
Awesome. And how did that work out with your current house right now? What was the strategy like? Did you end up doing some bidding? Did you get really lucky, or how did it work out?
How did you choose Alliston also?
And how did you choose Alliston?
Yeah,
That's a great question. So I'm Brampton born and raised, so family's there, convenience is there, memories are there. So the decision to leave Brampton wasn't an easy one, and Peel Region let alone. So right away when we were watching the market, we knew that we were going to be outbid in kind of direct Peel region, the competition was just fierce. And I think everyone understands that there's a lot of multi-generational families living in Brampton that make it possible for people to do that. So one was, you know what, we got to move out a little bit further. That's completely fine. So we just started looking at kind of the outskirts of Peel region. And then if that was too much, you know, looking even further. So we we had some funny questions saying, why are you guys looking so far, and do you even know where you want to live? We said we just want to buy a house at this point, just knowing how crazy it was. So you know, we were looking at Ajax, Pickering, Guelph, Cambridge. We looked at New Tecumseh, Alliston actually way back when, but then that's when life was normal back in 2018. We're like, no, it's too far. This can be too much. And as we went through kind of the bidding wars, we probably saw about 17 houses. We bid on 10. And as we went through those bids and those site visits, each of them got a little bit closer and closer to Alliston. And we thought, you know what, if we're already looking this far, what's another 10 minutes up the road? Found this house, saw it in 24 hours, bid on it in the next 24 hours, and here we are.
So let's go back to maybe like the first house that you guys bid on. What was the process? You know, what went down? How many other offers were there?
Yeah, great question. That first house was a dangerous one for us because it was the perfect house. We saw it, we both fell in love with it. And the reason I say it's a dangerous one is because it set the bar so high of everything that we saw after that. So,
and that one was in New Tech as well, or? That
was actually in East Gwillimbury. So it's a relatively new neighborhood. Okay. It's probably a 2-year-old home. It was a semi-detached, 3-bed, 3-bath, unfinished basement, so some room to play with and make our own living space. But the finishes were gorgeous. So we went in, I want to say, 120K over on the bid, and we got outbid by 200K. So if that just paints a picture of the environment we were dealing with. One, we were so discouraged because we felt so good about our offer. We're like, oh yeah, we're going 6 figures over asking. It's a beautiful home. It's what we want for our family. And that kind of hit pause on things of like, okay, now we need to kind of reset. What's our pre-approval? What's our comfort range to not be house poor? And that automatically, you know, filtered out so many houses that we were probably looking at that said, okay, that's not even going to be possible. Let's go back to the drawing board and understand it a bit further.
Where did you guys come up with that number? So if whatever you bid on, where did you guys come up with that number?
Working with our realtor, they were keeping us honest that this is probably an underlisted asking on the listing. So that was one sort of confidence builder of what's the right number. The other one was just keeping track of what houses are selling for. So when we saw houses listed at 800,000, for example, when we see it being sold for $1 million plus, we know that there's probably 2 rounds of 100K over asking before they even got to that number. So just really trying to, you know, watch everything, which is with as much diligence as possible, and trying to figure out what our approach would be.
And do you know how many other offers were on the table at that point? Like, were you guys considered for a round 2? Because I know they kind of, you know, we kind of do this in
rounds.
Yeah, and the blind bidding doesn't help. But yeah, so we were one of, I want to say, 23 offers. By the time we put in our ask or our offer, we were probably the 12th offer in. We did make it to the second round. So I will say going 6 figures over asking did break us through. It was that second round that we just said, you know what, it's not going to be worth our time. The other thing that we really kept ourselves honest with, and we have a few friends that are in real estate investing or just people that have, you know, bought the first home before, is yes, we want to get into the market, but 5-10 years down the road, when we choose to buy our second home, we want to make sure that there's some gap where we do have that appreciation. It's easy to just throw money at the wall and buy the house, but if you don't have that long-term plan of like, am I going to gain on this? Is it going to help me buy my next home? It could have got us into muddy waters. So that was the other thing we kept in mind of like, let's make sure we have a bit of value appreciation. And now we're seeing the reverse happen where, you know, a month after, or, you know, probably 6 months after we bought our home, we had neighbors selling, and they were selling for 200K more than we paid. So we're like, sweet, this is amazing. We've already appreciated. And now we're looking at the reverse where values have now gone back to what we bought for because of the interest rates. So it's a bit of a long game.
Yeah, that was smart thinking then. We'll get into that stuff and the impacts of these interest rates stuff, but definitely it's you guys did the smart thing to be more conservative I guess, instead of just blowing your whole budget on whatever, So that's great. So you said it was your 10th bid, this current house that you're in right now? It was your 10th house that you guys went to?
Probably, plus or minus 2 or 3, to be honest. The funny thing is that we lost East Glenberry, love the area, love the house. We saw a few others, call it, Cambridge, Guelph, Ajax, Pickering. And then I was telling you that we got honest with ourselves. So we saw a house in Bradford, which is a little bit more west of East Glenberry. Yeah. Another gorgeous house, semi-detached, finished basement, checked all the boxes. We lost that one, which is what brought us up here. And our realtor had another client that was looking to sell another home. It was just slightly outside of a budget that we were willing to play with. And that was probably, I want to say, 7 minutes south of where we were. So because we were remotely interested in that, we're like, you know what, if we're already looking 7 minutes away from New Tecumseh, let's set our eyes back up there. And that's how we ended up here. And we were probably, this was a 2-round bid. So our initial plus a second round, and that's what got us in.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool.
All right. How frustrating was that process?
It was extremely frustrating, and that's because we were being really cautious. We didn't want to lose our deposit, our hard-earned savings, and the lose our deposit thing was all around conditions. It was, do we put a financing condition? Do we put an inspection clause? And the financing.
Did you any conditions?
On this house, no. On every other house that we lost, yes.
Normal, I guess, but
yeah, and that's
hot. Townhouses are super hot. You put a condition on it, forget it. You're not even putting in an offer.
Exactly. And the financing condition was really just a CYA, a cover your butt, keeping it PG here. But we didn't want to lose our money, but we were confident in our position. Like our lender had us, 5 stars across the board. Our realtor said you're being, really, really comfortable, and you're not going to get denied after you get that closing deal, especially with all the legwork we did. The inspection clause, we played with that a bit, just depending on how old the home was. So there was a house that we saw that was probably 20 plus years. We're like, let's get that one looked at. We know things like the roof, the weather stripping, and all that fun stuff that deteriorates, needs a good look. But folks were stripping that away from their offers just to get in. So this house that we went in on, it was only 4 years old at the time. So inspection, we felt good. 10 offers in, we're like, let's remove the financing clause as well. We're feeling good. And that's what really got us through, was trying to just break away some clauses and be really bold going into it.
Any issues after the fact, I guess, with, not putting that inspection in? Have you noticed anything since?
Nothing at all. And the other thing is, given how new the house is, we're still covered under the builder's carry-on warranty. So should anything structural or, from a weather sort of protective perspective go wrong, still have some levels of coverage. I think the total coverage is 7 years, so we're about 3.5 left for us.
Okay, that's good.
Very cool.
Do you regret buying when you did, or any regrets with what you bought or the price that you paid for it?
I'd say we probably regret most when we bought, and in terms of that when, I wish we did it sooner. I would say from the time that we started seriously looking, so that was probably November of 2020 to the time that we closed, which was May 2021, the value appreciated like crazy. We probably could have bought a house 100K less, 150K less if we started, I want to say, 6 or 7 months sooner. So the when was definitely a regret. We wish we did that sooner. The price that we paid, given the times that we were dealing with, we're content, because we saw folks selling a month or 2 months right after we moved in, and we're like, wow, if we even waited a day to put it on offer, we would have lost there. In terms of the where, I think the initial was probably yes. It's far, family's far. Luckily with the pandemic, it's a lot of work from home. But just given the town and the community and the chance to sit in the nice and quiet up in the north here in Alliston, it's a nice change of pace, and I think it's exactly what our family needed. Now when we drive back to Peel Region or even some parts of the GTA, we're like, wow, it's really busy. And we're not sure we would have wanted to raise a family, at least with a young baby and a crazy dog in the hustle and bustle of the GTA. So we're really, really happy with our decision a year and a half in.
I 100% agree with that. Being up north of GTA, fantastic move. And you know what I find super, super interesting is that people have been saying what you've been saying, the timing since the beginning of time. Since our house was made, somebody was like, man, I wish I bought that dirt patch, when I could have put the house on it. But people have been saying that for so long, and it's crazy how that changes, where for a period of time, and things have picked up again, but for a period of time when the interest rates start to go up, all of a sudden we had nothing, and all those people that were willing to pay $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 over on stuff, now they're like, well, if I can't pay $200,000 over, then I don't really want this house.
Yeah.
So it's sort of this psychology of it is just so interesting to me, because
FOMO is real, by the way.
it is.
Yeah.
Did you really need a house to live in, or did you just buy one because your cousin bought one?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Like,
true.
Information here. I'm finding it really interesting just having these conversations with people. Some people, it makes sense. Their families are growing, or, a lot of the people that needed that extra space to work from home.
Yeah.
But then some transactions, it's interesting to see, why did you move? Was there really a need there?
No.
And I saw a stat that came up last week. I think it was something around the 75 or 80% of homes that are built in 2023 will be landlord owned. So the other sense of FOMO is like, if you're a first-time home buyer that actually wants to live in a house and start your family, it's not just an investment. It's getting scary because there's so much capital in the market to be invested. Whereas traditional first-time home buyers that are live-in, they're looking at a whole other level of competition. It's not just folks that are looking to live in their first home, but folks that are looking to buy their first investment property too.
Yeah.
Question going back to when you guys started looking. So you said November of 2020, right? Is that when you guys actually started your search, or was that the time you decided, okay, we're like, how long in between did you actually put that first offer in, I guess?
So the first offer was probably, I want to say late February of 2021. We started doing a lot of the homework and the serious looking in November. So starting to look on Zillow or Realtor.ca, wherever people look.
And you didn't find anything that you liked on paper until February? Is that correct?
The first house we saw, was February, because in the process of from November onwards, it was the pre-approval. It was what financing do we need to get in order? What documentation do we need? So one of the other things that we learned through the grapevine was get your SHIT in order before you even start this process, because if you don't, that pre-approval, that understanding of what your budget is so convoluted. You put your first offer in, or you could even get to the day of closing and be so disappointed. So we really, really wanted to make sure we were being really safe, really conservative, really informed, so we're not met with any surprises on the day of offer, the day of closing.
And that's refreshing, because a lot of folks do things backwards. They start by finding success of their house first, and then they start working their way into a mortgage broker, and
Hey, we got to the lawyer's office on the day of signing off, right before closing, and I've heard so many nightmares of like, oh, the seller's bank didn't do this, the buyer's bank didn't do this, the law office didn't receive the paperwork. So I got there, all the paperwork's laid out, and I was asking the lawyer, I was like, hey, is everything in order? Like, we're really worried. He's like, this is the cleanest closing I've ever seen. Like, keep your fingers crossed, go home, go have breakfast. You guys are good. So I think a lot of that homework, a lot of that asking, talking to people who know what they're doing, just really pays off in the long run to make sure it's a clean process.
That's very rare.
How did you find like your lawyer, your agent, everybody that you were involved with? How did you find them?
Yeah, our agent is a family friend, one that we've known for probably 20 plus years now. So they helped us find our rental home that we were in, and also helped us through the buying process. Our lawyer is one that our families use as well. My brothers have used them. So just kind of people that we love and trust. If they have folks that they trust, it's truly word of mouth.
Very cool. And you started out looking on your own first? Or did you start, you called your agent first, and then they got the ball rolling for you? How did that work?
Yeah, I would say 95% of the search was self-directed. We were looking for homes that we would even remotely see ourselves living in. We did receive a few updates from our realtor of, here's a suggestion here or there. But it really comes down to who's buying, and, a suggestion is great, but if you don't see yourself living there, then it's not worth your time or your realtor's time or the seller's time to go and see a home that's not worth the while.
That's right. That's right. And it's like I'm gonna go back to your you being having all your stuff together. Most people don't have their stuff together, and they they do expect the real estate agent to sort of be like, here's what you're doing. So if a lot of times if you don't lay it out for people, from here's your first step, here's your second step, here's your third step, and this isn't people that haven't bought before. Maybe they've done this a couple of times, but there's like some space in between, because if you don't do something for 4 or 5 years, it sort of gets out of your mind, and you just think, oh, I'll just start looking. So getting those ducks in a row has been super important. Especially in these times where you have to make decisions like that. So that's pretty refreshing to know that there's people like you out there as well. Get your stuff together first.
If you really want your first home, you got to do the work. I'll say that for sure.
Do you have any regrets about anything, or anything you would do over?
Specifically, and I know we talked about some regrets, but in terms of your buying process, not your home or anything else, in terms of your buying process, is there anything else you would have done a little bit different to be more efficient?
Zero. I think everything kind of worked out. Again, we were being so cautious, knowing that we didn't want to lose any of our savings to something as silly as a deposit. So the most important thing was being honest with ourselves and making sure we checked all the boxes, for sure.
Yeah. And now and then we can go back to the affordability factor. You looked at how much you can afford, and you're realistic about it. Even though you've never owned before, you saw how much you're spending on living. You had rented, how how much living costs, and you sort of translated that into the home that you own, which is awesome. And now that things are changing a little bit, how has that affected you as a first-time home buyer? Somebody that there's some people that have owned homes before. There's people that have investment properties. They sort of know what this game is like. They're prepared for these interest rate changes. Did that affect you? Did it scare you? Has that impacted your life at all in terms
especially
of
the interest rates?
The interest rate hike.
Yeah.
And
yeah. In the moment, honestly, we went with a fixed rate. We were in a
nice.
pandemic. We knew that things were going to get muddy. We didn't know it'd be this bad, to be honest, but we're glad we did. We have friends that went variable and that bought around the same time that we did, and they're probably looking at a +6 or +800 monthly ins and outs just on a mortgage. But in terms of things that we're just being weary of right now, it's when our renewal comes up in 3.5 years, it's like, hopefully the interest rate drops and we're back at what we bought at. But if we're not, what's the impact to our day in, day out? What are ways that we can continue to kind of safeguard us? I think the other thing, as a homeowner versus being a renter before, something goes wrong with the house, you call the landlord, it gets fixed. If it's not a light bulb, it gets fixed. Something goes wrong in our house now, it's up to us to fix it. So it's take care of your ins and outs on a monthly basis, and like, how much are we putting away just in case something major happens and we need to repair it, right?
Maybe not even just major stuff, but have you noticed, and this is going back a ways for me, when I got my first house, do you feel like there's like a never ending list of stuff that you could be doing? Like just little stuff,
100%. I'm working on my garage right now to get it prepped for winter and make sure I can park my car back in there. And just with the amount of stuff we've inherited just by owning a home, that's another $1,200 project just right there to get ready.
You just did his backyard too.
I did. I've got
you were posting.
I've got my pergola up, and that was a lot of fun too. Lumber ain't cheap. I think everyone knows that, but it's some of those, like, I have fun doing my DIY projects, so it's a bit of a want to do, but there's a lot of need to do. To your point, Amir, of like, you gotta change your furnace filter. You gotta make sure if you got a water softener, you gotta get the salt. You gotta maintain your
lawn.
The lawn. Oh my gosh, yeah. So yeah, so there's a lot that adds up, right? So although it could be 10 or 20 bucks additional to a singular consumables grocery trip, in the grand scheme of things, you're looking at plus 5K. If you got kids like we have now, it's diapers, it's all those things that you just have to have, that needs to be considered.
Very cool. Sonia, I don't know if you have any questions, but I think this has been pretty fantastic. It's been a really cool insight into mind, and we have a lot of our own first-time home buyers too. we asked a lot of them. A lot of people don't want to volunteer this, so we really appreciate you taking the time and being here with us.
Yeah, Jay, just one last thing. Any last kind of minute advice that you would give to these first-time home buyers since they feel like the pressure is still on right now?
Yeah. Do your research. Be honest with yourself. I think I've said that multiple times, but being honest with yourself is, what's your make or break when you're looking for a home? Is it a big kitchen? Is it a big backyard? Is it the number of beds and bath in a home? Is it a ready-made house, or do you want a house that's kind of with an unfinished basement for you to make it your own? I think having that make or break criteria, and then like what are you willing to compromise on is really important, and not just the one person, but if it's a joint to purchase, making sure both folks are on the same page, because things get awkward at house viewings when they're not. And then just being prepared for what could come and all the uncertainties. So if the banks are looking for more aggressive GDSRs, TDSRs, how do you manage your debt portfolio and your earnings portfolio to support that? And then getting to that bidding process, have the hard conversation with your realtor, or have your realtor poke you and say, you're not going to make it, so don't waste your time, because there's a lot of paperwork that goes into prepping every offer. Amir and Sonia, as you probably are experiencing, it's not just a 30-second process. And then just, again, being honest with yourself and being prepared.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, we really do. And it means a lot more, coming from you versus stuff that we always say to our clients and they may not listen. This will be a really nice video for folks to be able to watch and say, okay, this is coming straight from somebody that's done this just recently.
You got it.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate it. And thanks for taking the time out of your day to be here with us. And we hope we chat again soon and kind of follow up with you and see how things are going, maybe in a couple of years or something. And your next move.
Yeah, why not? We'd be happy to.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jay.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.